welcome to our first episode of structure mapping. And so I'm actually going to go through the three basics on the three types of structure mapping, which is actually labeled right here. And it's just actually a simple basic that you need to understand. So structure mapping is basically how to actually understand structure when it comes to how you want to see structure to break, for you to be able to identify this as your break of structure, to be able to know where the trend is going and then where it is heading to probably. Okay, now let's go into the first type of structure mapping. So when we come to type 1, so on type 1 we have candle body structure mapping and then candle body structure break, right? So this is basically um, market structure. So and the types of structures we are looking at, and we are looking at structure breaks and then identification. So how to be able to identify structure breaks and then structure mapping, right? So right, so now let's go into an in-depth. So you see that when it comes to the type 1 structure, as I mentioned earlier, we have the structure breaks and then we have the structure mapping, right? So it is two types of structure mapping in each, right? So you have to have the number one is actually how you're going to put your line to be able to determine the break you want to see on the market structure. And in this case, we are having a candle body mapping and then a candle body break of structure. So which means you want to map your structure on a candle body and then you want to see your structure break with a whole candle body. And with this type of structure break, you are mean that anytime you see wick breaking this type of structure, you are basically saying that you don't understand, you are not taking it as a type of structure, because this you are considering it as something else and you will not like to get along with it. Now when we come to um the type 2 also. So on the type 2 we have structure mapping with a candle wick and then structure breaks with a candle wick. Basically what this means is that you are mapping your structure on top of a wick, right? And you are expecting price to break structure with a wick also as well. So this type of structure basically means that anytime you see a wick, even if the candle has not been fully produced to break this but the previous structure, you are saying that any wick that comes along and comes across, you are saying that price has actually broken structure in your own view. So hence you can see I have a high here and then another high here, indicating that price has broken structure, creating a new high, and then this high has actually is what you are able to map to get this structure break as well. Now let's go to the third structure mapping. So each structure mapping has its own pros and cons, and in a sense that everything will be explained in the next episode coming in. Now let's go to the last structure mapping, right? So basically this last structure mapping is also just basically almost as the same as the rest, but also in a very symptomatic way, which I use. So this is what I use as my structure mapping, and let me explain that for you and the reasons why I use this particular one. So basically what you understand about this particular one is that you are using candle wick as your structure mapping, meaning that you are drawing your line from a candle wick and you are using candle bodies as your candle break, in a, meaning that you are actually expecting to see price break structure by a candle body, not now a candle wick, just as the type 2 method. So now the type 3 method is basically what I use as labeled here. So now with the type 3, it has more advantages. As I mentioned, it has more pros and cons. That's advantages and disadvantages. So all these three has its disadvantages and advantages. You just have to back test it all to see which one actually works for you and which one doesn't work for you. So with these types of structure breaks, you need to identify which one you actually want, you feel comfortable trading with, and which one you don't feel comfortable trading with. You just have to leave all of it. You don't combine the three of them and say you want to trade with them when you are not experienced, right? So you are going to confuse yourself when you are taking the three of them, because when you see a structure break, you probably have to mess everything up, and then you don't understand what you are even doing at the end of the day. So with these types of structure breaking, I hope you understand how to actually map and see price break of structure. And so I'll see you in the next episode explaining how all these three works and how it actually behaves. Now let's look at the sell side of structure mapping. So basically this was the buy side. Sorry, I didn't indicate, right? So this was the buy side when it comes to structure mapping, right? And now we are going to the sell side when it comes to structure mapping. Let me just invert this real quick. So now we are now at the sell side of structure mapping. Now we have this one's being our lows. Let's look at this. Okay, so we have, let me just actually look at it. So we have price breaking structure to the downside. It is basically the same method, but in the other way around. So basically the first one was a buy side structure breaks, and now this is now the sell side structure breaks. What it basically means is that when price is falling, it is still the same types of method, but I just want to see in a view that you are knowing, you already know that, oh, this one is mapping with candle bodies and then breaking with what candle bodies. The second one breaks with what maps with what candle wicks, and and also breaks with what candle wicks. But with this one, it's a little bit trickier as it intends. So this one, you're supposed to consider two things. You are saying that anytime you see a candle wick as a break of structure, the same applies to also a candle body. So meaning that a candle body is a break of structure for you, and a candle wick is also a break of structure for you. But so the simplest ones you can actually go with is the type 1 and then the type 2, right? So as this one can seem a little bit complex for you to understand as the time goes on, because when you're back testing, you need to take into consideration of all these things. So this one basically has three types of structure dividends, right? If I say dividends, don't get me wrong, I'm probably, we are not Englishmen actually. So it has three types of advantages, right? So meaning that most at times you can be able to see, most at times you can be able to see a break of wick like this, and then go to the downside, you are seeing another break with a candle body as well, right? So it deals down to how you have back tested it and how you have understand it. So I will advise every beginner to stay away from this type of structure mapping, because it can be a little bit trickier when it comes to trading. So basically we use this mostly in the lower time frames, right? So if you are, the more you get advanced into the trading industry, you get to understand how structure breaks on the lower time frames, hence you consider most of them and then you leave the rest, right? But basically the simplest ones I can advise everyone to follow is actually the structure 1 and then the structure 2. So with the structure 1 and the structure 2, you already understand that these are the very simple and also the very basically understood structure breaks in all of the trading industry, right? Because most people actually use this one and others to prefer using this one, right? But I prefer using this particular one as it actually gives me more understanding onto what I want to see in the markets, and also onto what I actually like to see in the market. So as time goes on, while we advance into the strategy, I'll be taking you through this type of structure breaks, because that is how I trade, and I don't want to actually switch to any of this. So hence I will stay away from both of this. I'm not saying you can't use this, okay? I'm going to teach you on how to actually understand structure breaks, and then um, uh, with all these types of structure mapping using USDJPY, right? So actually stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.